Thank you very much for staying with us this Friday morning on the AM show. Now, we're going to be digging into, some of what we witnessed yesterday in the August House of Parliament as Akufo-Addo was sworn in to begin what will be his second and last term as president of this country. There's a lot to talk about, different perspectives to share on the behavior of parliamentarians and among other matters. Now, joining us for this conversation from the security angle and from other angles, we have Professor Kwesi Enning, security analyst and director, Faculty of Academic Affairs and Research, Kofi Annan International Peacekeeping Training Center. We also have Professor Kwabena Safo-Kantanka, senior research fellow with Odikro. And of course, we have Dr. Kwesi Amache-Boateng, political scientist at the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology. Gentlemen, a very good morning to you. Thank you for joining us on the AM show.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Great. Let me just also mention that the AM show is brought to you by Elegant Homes. If you want to own that home that will stand the test of time, think Elegant Homes. They help us bring you this show every weekday morning. So let me start with you, Professor Enning, on the happenings, developments yesterday, and what you make of it before we zero in on the security perspective and what exactly happened.
Well, it was a day of infamy, a day of disgrace for our politics, a day that basically showed that the gangsterism that we've characterized as vigilantism is actually perpetrated, supported, funded by some of these people who sit in that house. The behavior, the utterances, the fisticuffs was so distasteful, so uncalled for. And it raises a very fundamental question, or probably a set of questions about the ethics and the morality that drives our politics. And more importantly, the principles that should guide our behavior. I think the House and the individual political parties have a lot of soul searching to do. They have to apologize to the people of Ghana, precisely because Parliament does not work in a vacuum. It needs the citizenry whose hard work pays and maintains them, and whose trust led to their being voted for. So it's a sad day, although we ought to have been celebrating the unique election of a speaker from the opposite side of the House. Nothing must and can be swept under the carpet. This is disgraceful. Yesterday, I spent quite a bit of time on the international media trying to explain different facets of what angle the international media came to this very infamous day for us. So it's a sad day for Ghana's democracy and a potentially dangerous one too.
Okay. Do you consider this a slur on our governance system, especially the legislative body? Because mind you, yesterday, interestingly, was Constitution Day. And on that day, our parliamentarians found it fitting to, so to speak, disgrace the country. What is your take on it?
Probably most of them did not recognize or remember that it was Constitution Day. If they did, they didn't care and they didn't give a hoot. And that is what even makes it more dangerous and more unacceptable. Yesterday was a very raw demonstration of the disrespect of some parliamentarians for the people of Ghana, for the sacrifices that we make or we have made to place them in that house, our collective expectations of what they can deliver and ought to deliver. Because you see, the people of Ghana on the 7th of December made very conscious choices that said the way our politics has been played out since the Fourth Republic, that we wanted a much more nuanced, mature, collaborative form of politics. So we are voting in ways that will join the House to deliver in particular ways. And if what happened yesterday is reflective of how the processes through the voter registration, the campaign, the actual voting, relation, leading to what happened yesterday is anything to go by, then we have a lot of soul searching to do.
Right.
There's no way to describe this than to say it's an utter disgrace. It was dishonorable performance, and they owe us, the ordinary people of Ghana, an apology, an inquiry into what happened, and the blatant disrespect for the ethics of parliamentarianism, the violence displayed in the House, and the gangsterism of some of the behavior that we saw.
Right. And what you say is supported by what Tamale Central Member of Parliament, Honorable Mutala, has been saying, that for him, he would like an investigation into it. But let me quickly go to Dr. Kwesi Amache Boateng. Now, yesterday, what we saw is nothing short of a mixed martial arts display in Parliament, with our parliamentarians doing shocking things. What is your assessment of what you saw yesterday?
Thank you for the opportunity. Let me say good morning to your viewers. Actually, you know, like my colleague has earlier said, it was a terrible day for Ghana.
Right.
But beyond that, in terms of political science, we look at, you know, stability of the state. We look at the stability of the state. And one of the means by which this is measured has to do with the extent to which, generally speaking, the elites show voluntary commitment to the constitution of the relevant state, in this case, the constitution of the Fourth Republic of Ghana. And you do this measurement, especially in times when their core interests are at stake. And so it is best done during elections. And when politicians see themselves as losing elections, then you realize that they place themselves, their interest, their selfish interest, over that of the state, that of the constitution of the state. So right from the very word go, during the registration exercise, the campaign, the day of voting itself, and immediately afterwards, we were treated to, you know, various threats coming from politicians, threats against the state, threatening the Ghanaian state, threatening to destabilize the state. People consciously inciting members of the security. Statements like bullets have no faces. Bullets who hit anybody at all. All these were uncalled for. And actually, these prepared the ground for what manifested yesterday. Because over there, you know, they placed themselves in a position where this winner-take-all rationality played out. It was a do and die affair, so to speak. And so they were not ashamed. In the presence of the cameras, they were prepared to do what they did. It comes to one thing. The political elites themselves are
Hello, Doc. Are you still with us?
Conscious of the constitution. Like I was saying, you know, I'm sorry, I'm using my phone and occasionally people call in.
Sure.
The political elites themselves are contentious of the Fourth Republican Constitution of Ghana, and to that extent, not showing commitment to the Constitution. And so are the very people, if they were to have their own way, would destabilize the country. Let me quickly bring what is happening in the US and the fact that the military bosses over the years have all come together to warn the sitting president. This is unprecedented over there. But it relates very much to what is happening here. Individual politicians placing their interest over that of the state. So that's exactly what, you know, we're treated to yesterday.
Right.
If they were prepared to fight the way they did, they would lead, armies to destabilize Ghana if they get the opportunity. And now we heard them. We heard them immediately after the elections. Their statements, some of these are captured on video. They are not committed to Ghana. They are not.
Now, Doc, you have studied the politics of this country, and you spoke about that zero-sum situation where it's a winner-take-all, sort of race that we have in terms of our politics. We've heard the former majority leader, I should say, Oseiche Mensah-Bonsu, say that that should not be the case. It shouldn't be winner-take-all. But let me just ask you this. Do you feel, on the back of happenings in Parliament yesterday, that our political party politics has become so antagonistic, maybe the worst we've ever seen in the Fourth Republic and beyond? What is your assessment as a political scientist?
Actually, it is what the individuals, members of the parties carry into the party. When you take a look at their primaries, and especially here in Kumasi, they go about it with the same do and die affair. So at the end of the day, it is the selfish interests of individuals that play out. When they come together in the name of the party, then it's the same thing that proceeds there, that unfolds there. It's very unfortunate. If you were to take a look back and examine what happened during the primaries, some of the developments, that unfolded, it's not necessarily different from what, we're seeing now. So as it is, yes, it is that do and die affair, antagonistic posture of the parties towards one another in respect of their selfish interests.
Right, but I just want you to hit the nail on the head.
When it comes to issues that they have common interest in, they easily come together to execute it. We witnessed this in yesterday. When, if you like, the NDC got what they wanted, and the MPP was ready to go with it. Sanity prevailed. They could even come to some compromises, consensus, and get the first speaker and the second speaker through without elections.
Right.
They didn't serve Ghana's interests, yesterday.
Right.
Yes,
I just want you to be very brief on this one. I wanted to know from you.
Individual members who carry these selfish, tendencies into the parties.
Right. Is this the worst you've seen in our legislature? Maybe in the Fourth Republic, or maybe through the period from independence? Just very briefly, is this the worst you've ever seen? We appear to be struggling a bit with the connection with regard to Dr. Kwesi Amachie-Boateng. Let me quickly move on to Professor Kantanka, who's also been on the line. And I'll put that same question to you. You can feed in briefly your quick thoughts on what happened yesterday. But do you feel this is the worst we've ever seen in that third, or the second arm of government, that is the legislature, in the history of this country?
Thank you very much. And let me say good morning to viewers and good morning to my panel members, especially Professor Kwesi. I'm privileged to be on the same platform with him. I respect him so much about his views. I think in a way I'll say yes. What we saw yesterday, in terms of my own observations of the Fourth Republican Ghana, it's the worst ever. Because I haven't seen military officers enter the floor of parliament before, not in the history of this country. I may not be that old, but in terms of what I have seen, what we saw yesterday was the worst. But generally, let me chip in this. If you're looking at the behavior of parliament generally, apart from what we saw yesterday, I would normally say that Ghana's parliament is a bit quieter and calmer than some other parliaments elsewhere. As a parliamentary discourse analyst, I've had an occasion to look at the UK Parliament. When I was doing my PhD, I looked at the UK and Ghanaian Parliament in a form of comparison, and I realized that in terms of parliamentary behavior, if we're looking at the House of Commons, and especially during the Prime Minister's question time, you realize that they are rowdier than even the Ghanaian parliament. So sometimes I am a bit accommodating when it comes to behaviors such as heckling, such as jeering during debates and all that. So in terms of that, we will say that's fine. In parliamentary settings, you are bound to see some of these things across the world. But yesterday's behavior was a bit different. If you don't mind, I will read a little bit of what the description of the UK Parliament House of Commons to you, what the general public say about the UK Parliament, especially the House of Commons. In fact, in 2014, you had the then Speaker of Parliament describing the behavior of the British MPs as full of yobbery and public school twittishness. That's how it was described. And the Parliamentary Society of the UK Parliament conducted some research around the same period. And some of the descriptions, you could see the parliament being described as, parliamentarians being described as being childish, over the top, and their behavior was pointless and all that. In fact, unsavory comments about the UK Parliament by the citizens of the UK. So what I'm trying to say is that parliamentary behavior, being rowdy, full of heckling and all that around the world. You know, you are talking about the oldest parliament of the world, that's the British Parliament. So some of these things are there. But in terms of what happened yesterday, I cannot accommodate that. And that is condemnable. And I agree with Professor Kwesienin. I couldn't agree with him more when he describes it as coming on the back of what we've been seeing over the years in terms of our electoral processes. And I'm worried about the vigilante behavior that we saw in Parliament yesterday. In other words, the implication is that what are the parliamentarians telling the people out there? Tomorrow when we have elections, assuming in the next few days, we have a by-election to conduct. What are you telling the people? What are you saying they should do? And if that kind of behavior is telling Ghanaians that, well, you can do anything you want in order to win power and all that, then it's very unfortunate coming from Parliament.
Right.
And I'm very worried about that kind of behavior when you had people, that community in Parliament yesterday.
Right.
Let me just sit down and...
Okay, so if you're done, Professor Kantanka.
No, I thought you were interrupting, not knowing it was my co-panel.
Okay, then you can round up before I move on to Professor Enning one more time.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that we must all condemn what we saw yesterday. And I'm looking forward to seeing a situation where in the future, maybe a constituency will be bold enough to pass a vote of no confidence in an MP, and so that we go through a by-election. We withdraw our MP from Parliament if the law allows that. I'm not too sure about that. So that MPs will know that, yes, we abhor certain behaviors on the floor of Parliament because they are there to represent us, our interest and not their interest.
Okay.
Of course, MPs, when it comes to interest, normally they put their interest at the forefront. But we must see that while they are talking about their interest, the state's interest must be the first priority that we should see. So for me, we should call on all Ghanaians to condemn what we saw yesterday. We're looking forward to seeing situations coming back to normalcy. And I believe that apart from, because yesterday was a unique day because of what we saw in the elections, the numbers and the election of the speaker. And you realize that immediately after the selection of the speaker, things came to normalcy. And I'm expecting that to continue. And I believe that it will continue, especially when the numbers that are that close and that the government of the day, in a way, will be forced to be consensual in their language, in what they say, so that they can win the support of the opposition.
Okay,
So
Prof, I would have you pause there briefly, so I can continue with Professor Enning as well. Now, Prof,
yeah, you can continue.
On the security end of things, I spoke to the Tamale Central MP, and he referred to what happened yesterday, the military swooping, on Parliament, the military, joint force of the military and the police, as a coup d'etat. Was that a security breach? And what are the implications of what happened?
Well, I think what happened yesterday in terms of the entry of the police and the military onto the floor of the House raises very disturbing issues around command and control, around the issuance of particular orders under particular circumstances. If what happened yesterday is to be perceived as a riot and therefore demanding the presence of security agencies to quell it, then one would have expected that the police would have been requested for. They would have discussed what ought to be done with the marshals of the House, and they would then have attempted to bring some sanity. Now, if it was the police, then there are procedures for bringing in the police to quell a demonstration. But what we were seeing, as Safo Kantanka has said, was just an excessively extreme form of misbehavior by our parliamentarians. It had degenerated into all sorts of things. But by the entry of a fully armed combat force into the chamber, the dynamics changed. And herein lies the danger that people probably do not see, but of course are concerned. Throughout the Fourth Republic, we have seen the deliberate use of the security agencies in situations where they ought not to have been used. This is leading to an erosion of the bonds of respect and trust between the citizenry on one hand and then the uniformed forces on the other. Now, let me give you a couple of examples relating to this erosion of trust and the mission and the vision of these uniformed forces. A couple of years ago in Kaswa, the military were deployed to deal with a land case that resulted in the death of, I think, 2 uniformed officers. We saw during the just ended voters registration public opprobrium and anger against uniformed forces, resulting in hooting, abuse, pelting with stones, behavior from the citizenry that one would not expect towards its security forces. And that shows this slippage in that bond that should be maintained through trust, respect, and reciprocity. We saw the case, a land case, in which 2 military officers were arrested by the citizenry, battered, and you could see the fear in their eyes as they pleaded for dear life and said they had been ordered from above. So we are seeing this erosion of trust, but whoever requested for the military to enter the house when that presence was not necessary means that now that calm has come. And I think Safo Kantanka's point about immediately the speaker was elected come return to the House. We need a very quick, sober, reflective process, once more an inquiry about the command and control issues that led to the presence of the uniformed forces on the floor of the House. Because there is something with uniformed forces. The nature of their training is that when those who hold civil order are perceived to misuse that civil authority, and they are always brought in to bring control, once more, it undermines the capacity of that civil institution to play that oversight role. When that erosion of respect continues over time, law and order breaks down.
Prof, so let me sneak in a quick one here. Now, you've spoken about who may have given the order. The Tamale Central Member of Parliament suggests somebody. I'll not mention the designation of the person or the person's name, but the question is, whoever gave the order, do you feel that person should be called to order himself or herself?
Well, I think now the different committees of Parliament will be established. And when those committees are established, then it becomes necessary for that committee, that the Defense and Interior, but of course the military or the uniformed forces work, and the funding comes or is approved both by the Finance Committee and the Public Accounts Committee. So these three committees would have to say what happened that day. How were the orders issued? What were the circumstances? What were they supposed to do when they entered the House? Because the question is, if there had been a confrontation, what would have been the outcome? And how would that outcome have been interpreted in the barracks?
Okay.
So this is not just a simple incident of the military entering the hallowed chambers. The members themselves behaved in a manner that denigrated the House and the chamber. But it was thought serious enough for the military to have entered that chamber.
Let me bring in, rope in Dr. Amakye Boateng at this point. So, Doc, I want to find out from you, looking at the circumstances and all that has been said, if ordinary citizens do some of the things we saw our parliamentarians, lawmakers on Constitution Day do, there would be severe penalties. What should be the punitive measures for some of these members of parliament who engaged in these actions? Professor Safo Kantanka, I think I'll direct that question to you rather, if you heard me. The actions of some of our parliamentarians yesterday were, things that our Constitution does not support, and any citizen who engages in that would face severe penalties. But we saw members of parliament do that. What do you think should be the punitive measures? At a point you were talking about some, provisions being added maybe to our Constitution to ensure that some of these people can be withdrawn. And we have some of these in other jurisdictions. What do you think should happen to these members of parliament, ballot box movers, ballot snatchers, kung fu, the antics we saw yesterday? What should happen to them?
Well, I think that is normally said that Parliament is a master of his own laws, and that is the reason it was unfortunate the military officers and the police officers entered the floor of Parliament yesterday. It becomes very difficult to see the kind of punishment you normally give to an ordinary citizen being applied to an MP. But in their own standing orders, there are ways they can find to penalize, or if you like, punish those MPs that will be found culpable if there's an investigation. Some of their privileges can be withdrawn. You can lose some allowances and some of the immunities that you have for a period of time. You can be called to to the bar of parliament to apologize and do all kinds of things. You know, in parliamentary context or in political context, sometimes offering an apology is a way of trying to deflate the personal ego of an MP. So there are ways they can handle this so that going forward, we can check the behavior of MPs. Otherwise, you know, yesterday was the first day of the 8th Parliament. If we are not careful and then we don't investigate and take the appropriate measures or put in place the appropriate measures to curtail that kind of behavior, it will continue. And if it continues, it won't augur well for us as a state, as a country. And so I believe that going forward, there are ways Parliament itself can handle that and make sure that those who are found culpable, especially those who issue the orders. Yesterday, I remember some names came up. I'm not too sure. I can speculate. There were journalists there. They mentioned names. I remember I was on one of your sister stations monitoring the processes. And the reporter mentioned one particular name that he was the one who ushered in the military officers. If it is true, very unfortunate. And I'm looking forward to seeing a situation where that person will be penalized or punished by Parliament itself so that we can bring some sanity into the behavior of MPs going forward so that they can concentrate on the work of Parliament, legislating, representation, and oversight.
Okay.
Otherwise, for me, I'm not going to be too happy about the future of this Parliament. We need to see, of course, you remember that normally when Parliament does its own investigations, we complain about not seeing proper punishment being meted out to individuals who are found culpable. Remember situations where somebody like Mahama Yariga, the Honorable MP for Boko, was asked to apologize after an investigation. We want to see some of these things, but not just an apology. By going forward, we want to see a situation where some privileges of MPs can be withdrawn.
Right. Now, Prof. Safo Kantanka, I'll come to you with this bit before I move on again to Professor Enning. Looking at all the things we're discussing now, in fact, yesterday, again, I'll not mention names owing to the sensitivity of the issues we're discussing here, but I overheard, together with my colleagues, I have my colleagues as witnesses, one of these members of Parliament who engaged in these activities that all of us are so embarrassed about. And this member of Parliament was unrepentant, basically saying that if he had the opportunity, he would do it again for his party. Of course, I'll not mention his name or which side he was on. But what then do we do that to ensure that what has started is not continued? How do we, or how do the political parties mend fences and work together moving forward? What do they do? It would appear we are facing challenges with Professor Safo Kantanka's line connection as well. Prof, so if you can hear me, yes. I'm basically asking that owing to the unrepentant, feeling or emotions or what we're seeing from some of the members of Parliament, how do they move forward, mend fences, and ensure that moving forward we'll not see such actions in future, and that again, the work of Parliament will be smooth in this 8th, Parliament?
Well, I mean, whilst we try to get Dr. Professor Safo Kantanka's thing to work, can I respond?
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah. Look, I've said this over and time again. Political party affiliation support work must and is predicated on shared principles, shared norms, and shared values. It cannot be right that an individual whose behavior has brought disrepute to his or her party can be recalcitrant and shows a willingness and a disrespect. First, a willingness to recommit the same offense, but also a disrespect to the voting public, then given the chance, I will do the same thing again. So this goes beyond the role of the punitive actions and the sanctions that Parliament can bring on board, and actually lays the blame or the expectations of changed behavior and attitude on the political parties themselves. What kinds of integrity, behavior, performance do they expect the individuals who put themselves forward to represent their constituencies and by extension, the parties to have? Okay, what can they bring on board to promote, deepen, strengthen our politics, our institutions, so that the interest of the generality of the Ghanaian people can be served? So when people show this recalcitrance and an unwillingness to change, even in the face of video evidence, then we need to go back to the drawing table and to say, what are the types of behavior that we are looking for? Because you see, what we have shown or seen makes our diplomacy going forward very difficult. Because although the UK Parliament can be quite tough sometimes, there's a debating culture. If you remember when we were kids, debating societies in our secondary schools were robust societies that encouraged diversity of views, opinions, but still all done within a certain framework where you didn't threaten it. It never degenerated into fisticuffs. So there's a certain sort of recognition of that form of public engagement. Ours degenerated yesterday, and I'm hoping that the leadership of the different parties in Parliament will call those who kicked boxes, snatched ballots, took the ballot papers and boxes away, which are acts that go against the vigilantism bill, Act 999. So there is some credibility issues that the parties will have come with or deal with. They have to eat humble pie and come before the people of Ghana, as Professor Kantaka has said, and apologize in a manner that as citizens we find sincere, and going forward change their behavior.
Okay.
I think that is the least that they can do, but there's a lot of hard work for this Parliament to win the trust and the respect of the people of Ghana.
Okay. Professor Safo Kantanka, I think this would be maybe your wrap-up comments. What challenges do you see lying ahead of the 8th Parliament? What are the challenges that, on the back of what we've seen so far, you foresee could plague the 8th Parliament of the 4th Republic?
Well, thank you. Going forward, I think that, we haven't had this kind of Parliament before where the numbers are almost the same. And so going forward, we are yet to see what the challenges are going to be. But I can straightforward say that we are going to see a more positive consensual use of language on the floor of Parliament, especially from the government MPs, because for every agreement or bill that is taken to Parliament, you need the support of the opposition to be able to go through the processes. And therefore, this is a time for consensus. And you remember on the day of the State of the Nation address presented by the President, he called for a dialogue consensus among Ghanaians and in our political circles. And I can foresee that, And for me, the nature of the 8th Parliament tells me that we are growing as a country. Our democracy is growing. It's a natural way of learning certain other things, going beyond the usual way of doing business. And so when people are not ready to change, sometimes nature changes them. And so I can foresee that the vitriolic attacks, the vitriolic language that we normally see on the floor of Parliament will come down, and then we will see the usual traditional behavior of Ghanaians, where we respect each other so much. If you look at if you go to a traditional court in a Ghanaian setting, you realize that the language is sober, respectful, and all that. And I can foresee us going back towards some of these things. So I can foresee a situation where this parliament may be even less chaotic. Of course, when you have gray areas, it can also degenerate into chaotic scenes, the heckling, the jeering, and all those kinds of things will come in. I can foresee that because when the opposition sometimes know that, well, they can force the government to do something in their favor, they are not going to compromise. What it also means is that we are likely to see our laws and agreements being in favor of the interests of the state. Because if we're a government and you have this kind of parliament, anytime you are taking a bill or an agreement to parliament, you need to be careful how it is captured, how it is presented. Because if there are questionable clauses in any bill, in any agreement and all that, I bet you the opposition are likely to take advantage of that and question and put the government on its toes. So I can foresee both positive sides and negative sides of the current parliament, but I see more of a positive side of it.
Right. But thank you very much, gentlemen. Of course, Professor Kwabena Safo-Kantanka, Senior Research Fellow with Odikro, and of course, Professor Kwesi Enning, Security Analyst and Director, Faculty of Academic Affairs and Research, Kofi Annan International Peacekeeping Training Center. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time, and we wish you the very best. Don't you forget, the show is brought to you by Elegant Homes. Just check them out. They'll give you that dream home. Elegant Homes and General Construction Limited is a wholly owned Ghanaian company with over 15 years experience. Our affiliate company, Elegant Home Products Limited, fabricates and sells high-quality UPVC windows and door profiles from Turkey, plasterboards, cornices, gypsum adhesives, and accessories. We have luxury residential properties in prime areas, including East Legon, and we also construct properties in other parts of Ghana. Elegant Homes is now selling 3, 4, 5-bedroom executive detached houses. Its gated community, Elegant Courts at Katamanso, off the Adenta Dodowa Road in Accra. Now, the project has solar street lights, underground sewer systems, 24/7 security, if you're especially concerned about security, tarred roads, constant flow of water, estate management, and a recreational area with a tennis court, playground, swimming pool, and mini shops. What more could you ask for? Clients have the option of choosing from a wide range of architectural designs and have it modified for them if you want customization. You can also request tailor-made services where we build to suit individual taste. Our houses are built to the highest standards, and we ensure that the finest of materials are used to give you excellence, luxury, beauty, and value for your money. Our properties can be located in East Legon, Elegant Courts at Katamanso. You'd want to call us, so do reach out to us on the following numbers: 0244 699 053, 0244 699 053. You can also call 0248 974 428, 0248 974 428. The website, eleganthomesgh.com, eleganthomesgh.com, or sales at eleganthomesgh.com. So don't forget the S, sales at eleganthomes.com. Locate our office in Katamanso, of course. Now, coming up next, Ghana's current democratic dispensation is founded on the 1992 Constitution, a document that sets out our collective and individual rights and aspirations towards development. Like every good project, a candid review is required, lessons learned, and progress made. One Ghana movement, in partnership with the University for, the UPSA, actually, law, powered by Joy FM and JoyNews, present the first annual Constitutional Day Lecture. The lecture will be delivered by legal practitioner and dean of the University for Professional Studies, Accra Law School, Dr. Ernest Kofi Abochi. The topic, realizing the 1992 Constitution beyond elections, public goods and inclusive governance. The date is this Monday, the 11th of January, 2021. The time is 9:30 a.m. prompt. The venue is the West Wing Auditorium of the UPSA in Legon, and the lecture will be broadcast live on Joy 99.7 FM and JoyNews, as well as on social media. So join us and let's chart the way forward for our development as intended by the framers of the 1992 Constitution. The first annual Constitutional Day Lecture is brought to you by the One Ghana Movement in partnership with the UPSA Law School and powered by Joy 99.7 FM, JoyNews, and myjoyonline.com, home of independent, fearless, and credible journalism. So the conversation with Kofi Abochi is up next. Do stay with us.